Welcome to my channel. Subscribe, listen, and enjoy my stories every day. The crunch of the gravel driveway under my tires was a comforting sound, one I always associated with the calm isolation of our cottage retreat. I spent the weekend alone, fishing and clearing my head while Andrea, my wife, was supposedly on a girls' trip to the beach. We needed the space, she had said, a little time apart to breathe. Pulling into the garage, the shift from outdoor brightness to the dimly lit space made me squint. I gathered my minimal luggage and made my way inside. The house felt unusually quiet. The air was stale, as if the liveliness it usually held had been sucked away. I headed straight to our bedroom to unpack. The laptop on the bed was still open, an oversight Andrea would never usually make. Curiosity overtook me, a gut feeling pushing me to glance at the screen. It displayed a folder titled, Beach Getaway Pics. I hesitated, the cursor hovering over the thumbnail. My heart thudded louder with each passing second. Clicking through, I expected to see Andrea and her friends lounging under the sun. Instead, the images twisted my gut into knots. There she was, not with her lifelong friends, but with a group of men, young and overly tanned, grinning as they surrounded her on a beach. The laughter and joy were clear, but none of it was for me. My hands trembled as I clicked further, each image and video unveiling more of the betrayal. One video was particularly damning, Andrea, half naked, laughing as not one, but 5 men flirted and touched her openly at a hotel, their intentions unmistakable. The realization hit like a punch to the gut. I had been deceived, my trust shattered in the span of a few clicks. I sat back, my breath shallow, eyes fixed on the frozen image of Andrea's carefree betrayal. Anger swirled within me, quickly replaced by a calculating coldness. I will not let this stand, I thought. They will all pay for this. Closing the laptop with a snap, I stood and began pacing the room, plotting. Each step was a beat in the symphony of revenge forming in my mind. By the time I stopped, night had fallen, and a plan had crystallized. Get them back, I whispered to myself, a dark promise in the quiet of our bedroom. Break their lives, just as they broke mine. I knew what I had to do. Starting tomorrow, I would act. This was just the beginning, and none of them could foresee the storm that was about to hit their shores. The morning sun barely touched the horizon when I started my car. The drive to the beach town where Andrea had been was a blur, my mind fixated on the faces I had memorized from the pictures. My jaw clenched, and my grip tightened on the steering wheel with each mile that passed. Today was about confrontation and setting the stage for my revenge. I arrived at the hotel by mid-morning. The same hotel from the videos, its facade more mocking in its cheerfulness than I had imagined. I strode into the lobby, my presence demanding attention. "Can I help you, sir?" the receptionist asked, her smile fading slightly at my stern expression. "I need names and room numbers for these men," I said, sliding a photo across the counter. My tone left no room for argument. "I'm sorry, sir, but that's against our privacy policy," she replied, pushing the photo back towards me. I leaned in, my voice low and firm. "Look, I'm not here to cause trouble for you. But those men have caused significant personal harm. I need this information, and I assure you, it's to prevent further damage." Her eyes darted around, the conflict evident in her expression. Finally, she relented, scribbling down information on a piece of paper and sliding it back discreetly. "Thank you," I said, pocketing the paper. My next stop was the beach. Finding them wasn't difficult. They were there, just like in the videos, surrounded by a group, oblivious to the storm approaching. I approached calmly, my anger a cold, hard stone within me. "Having fun?" I asked, stepping into their circle. The group fell silent, the men looking up at me with confusion. "Who are you?" one of them challenged. "I'm Andrea's husband," I stated, watching as recognition and then fear crept into their eyes. "Look, man, we didn't know," one began to stammer. "You knew enough," I cut him off sharply. And now you're going to pay for it. I turned to leave, pausing to add over my shoulder, enjoy your day. It might be your last peaceful one for a while. Back in my car, I made calls. To lawyers, to a few contacts in the media, to anyone who could help me expose and ruin them. By the time I was done, the wheels of retribution were in motion, each turn calculated and inevitable. As the sun set, I drove back home, the first battles of my war waged but far from over. The road stretched out before me, each mile a reminder of the line I had crossed from a betrayed husband to a harbinger of vengeance. I was committed now, driven by a need for justice, or was it revenge? Either way, I could not turn back. By the time I reached home that evening, the silence of the house seemed to echo with the echoes of my actions. The quiet was a stark contrast to the turmoil inside me. But there was no turning back. The dice had been cast, and I was all in, each move more daring than the last. I spent the night restless, plotting further steps. By dawn, I was ready to execute the next phase of my plan. This wasn't just about exposing Andrea and her lovers, it was about making sure they regretted their actions profoundly. My first stop was at the office of a private investigator. The door chimed as I entered, and I was greeted by a man with sharp eyes and a knowing look. I need thorough background checks on these individuals, I said, passing over the photos and details I'd gathered. Find anything that can help me leverage them. The PI nodded, his expression unchanging. You'll have everything within 48 hours. We'll dig deep. Thank you. Make it hurt, I replied, my voice hard. Next, I visited a lawyer, a specialist known for handling high-profile divorce cases. Her office was sleek, the walls lined with books and awards, a testament to her prowess. I want the divorce to be airtight. And I want her to walk away with nothing, I explained, laying out the evidence I had collected. She reviewed the documents, her eyes sharp. This is more than enough. I'll make sure she regrets ever crossing you. Satisfied, I left the office feeling a step closer to closure but miles away from peace. Over the next couple of days, I watched as my plans unfolded. The media caught wind of the scandal, with photos and videos circulating online, sparking outrage and disdain. Andrea's social circle crumbled, her public image, tarnished. When the private investigator called me with findings, hidden debts, shady dealings, and more, I handed them over to the press. Each revelation was a nail in the coffin of her reputation. The confrontation came unexpectedly. I was at home when Andrea stormed in, her face a mask of rage and desperation. How could you do this to me? To us, she screamed, her voice cracking. To us? I laughed bitterly. There is no us after what you did. You made your choice on that beach, Andrea. You ruined me, she sobbed, collapsing into a chair. I'm left with nothing. You started this. I'm just finishing it, I said coldly, my heart hard against her pleas. I never thought you'd go this far, she whispered, defeated. I never thought you'd betray me, I replied, the finality in my voice echoing between us. She left that night. The house felt even emptier, but it was a void I accepted, a necessary emptiness on the path to reclaiming my life. As I sat alone in the quiet, the scale of my actions weighed on me. Was it justice or revenge? The line had blurred, but there was no going back. I had set events in motion that could not be undone, and I was ready to face whatever came next. The days following Andrea's departure were filled with a haunting silence that permeated the walls of the once shared home. My revenge had been exacting and merciless, but the victory was hollow. The final act of my retribution awaited, and I was determined to see it through to its bitter end. As I sat in the dim light of my study, the phone rang. It was the private investigator with one last piece of information, one that would change the course of everything. We found something you should see, he said, his voice tense. It's not just about your wife. There's more to the story. Within the hour, I was sitting across from him, my hands clenched tightly as he slid a folder across the table. Inside were bank statements, emails, and photographs that painted a far darker picture than I had imagined. It wasn't just infidelity, it was betrayal of a more sinister kind. The men involved were part of a larger scheme, using Andrea as a pawn in their illicit dealings, her trips a cover for their criminal activities. The depth of the deceit cut deeper than any infidelity could. My anger, once hot and wild, turned cold and sharp. They had used her, and she, in turn, had dragged me into their web of lies. I want them destroyed, completely, I said, my voice void of any emotion. We'll need proof to take to the authorities, the investigator cautioned. I'll get it, I assured him, my mind already plotting. The following days were a whirlwind of activity. I tracked Andrea's movements, following her to a secluded meeting spot where she met with the men. Camera in hand, I captured every moment, every transaction. The evidence was damning. With the evidence secured, I confronted Andrea one last time. She arrived at my house, unaware of my knowledge of the deeper betrayal. I know everything, I said as she walked in, her eyes widening in fear. What are you talking about? She stammered. This was never just about cheating, was it? You were part of something bigger, something dangerous, I accused, my words sharp as knives. She broke down, confessing everything. The men had promised her a way out, a new life free from our marriage which she felt trapped in. They used her, and she let them, all under the guise of freedom. I listened, my heart hardening with each word. When she finished, I handed her the divorce papers. Sign these. It's over, I said firmly. With trembling hands, she signed, tears streaming down her face. I felt no pity, only the cold satisfaction of justice. I'm turning everything over to the authorities. You can explain your part to them, I stated, my decision final. Andrea left, defeated and broken. I watched her go, knowing I would never see her again. The betrayal was too deep, the divide between us insurmountable. In the end, the men were arrested, the criminal activities exposed. Andrea, caught in the crossfire, faced her own consequences. As for me, I was free from the web of lies but ensnared by a solitude of my own making. The house was quiet now, the echo of the door closing marking the end of our shared life. I sat alone, the weight of my actions heavy on my shoulders. The revenge was complete, but the cost was more than I had ever imagined.